Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. My name is Joe and this is the news on Friday the 19th of August that Manchester United have agreed a deal with Real Madrid for the signing of defensive midfielder Casemiro. Now, we're going to get into all this. This is all the journalists that reported it, everything that's gone on, exactly what this deal is going to look like. But first of all, can we just be excited? Before we get into all this, is he the right profile? Is he this or that? Can we just be excited that Man United for 4 or 5 years have been desperate for a defensive midfielder and we have gone out and signed arguably the best in the world? Can we just have that? Can we just be somewhat excited and optimistic? We'll get into all the details, everything, some of the doubts, some of this as well. But Manchester United are signing Casemiro. Think what we're saying here. This is sensational. This is a fantastic signing. Getting your comments in. Obviously, we're live. I'll go through all of that later. But this is the news that Manchester United have agreed a deal, 60 million euros plus 10 million add-ons for the signing of defensive midfielder Casemiro from Real Madrid. Fabrizio Romano, Manchester United will send an official bid for Casemiro tonight, and that was last evening, in order to close the deal today. 60 million fee, 10 million add-ons. Real Madrid are expecting to accept in the next hours. United planning on offering a deal until June 2026 with a further option. We also saw Simon Stone, of course, BBC, but as reputable as it gets. The fee for the Casemiro deal, if it gets completed, will be 60 million plus 10 in add-ons, 4-year contract with an option of an additional year. Not done yet, but Man United optimistic it will be. Again, Simon Stone with the slight negative pull there. But Paul Hurst, Casemiro deal closed, 60 million plus 10. Everyone knows the deal. Everyone knows the fee. Medical should be sorted in the next 48 hours. This deal has been agreed with Manchester United and Real Madrid. Obviously, that 60 plus 10 has been agreed. Simon Peach, United closing in on the signing of Real Madrid midfielder Casemiro for an initial 60 million plus 10 million add-ons. 4-year contract on the table with an optional further year. An eye-catching move, according to Simon Peach there. This is massive, right? We'll get into the progressive carries and who's going to win the ball, who's going to get it back up front. We'll get into all that in a bit. Man United have been desperate for a CDM for so long, and we sign one, and it's huge. Do you know what? Just think about that for a second. How big this is. Yes, he's 30. We're going to go into all the negatives, all the downsides. Get your comments in. Give me your thoughts on this. People are saying he's another Matic. Come on, guys. Can we just enjoy life for 10 minutes? People saying, love the positivity. This is the ideal... I like this. Ideal to solve a positional problem for the next 2 or 3 years. Would have preferred Sangare. What are you saying? He is light years ahead of Sangare. He's one of the best defensive midfielders in the world. Arguably the best. He's won more than any other defensive midfielder in the last 5-6 years. He's won 5 Champions Leagues. He's better than Sangare by a mile. What are we saying? Look, Olivia Alves, Joe, looking at the chat, you're the only one excited. Everyone else is trying to manifest bad vibes. We're not having bad vibes today. Toxic positivity all the way. That's all it is. Honestly, we were about to sign Casemiro. The actual Casemiro. Like, what are we doing? We've been so brainwashed into thinking that De Jong was the only option that now when we sign someone that at the start of the window, every single Manchester United fan would have snapped your hand off at, we're acting like it's some problem. Think about this. This is a massive deal. And yes, we can look forward in 5 years' time at the end of this contract, if we do, activate that optional 5th year, he will be a 35-year-old and probably past it. Almost certainly past it, right? And then you might go, well, we want to be back to the best of, if we want to get back up there challenging with City, it's going to take 2 or 3 years, and by then he's 33. The only way we get back to challenging City and Liverpool in 2 or 3 years' time is by having players that are this good at Man United. Like, it's almost like we think everyone we sign has to be 22, so that in 3 years when we're in good as Liverpool and City, then they'll be 25, and then they'll have another 7 years. It doesn't work like that. You need experienced players that are world-class in their position. In 3 years' time, we can replace him. But if we ever want to get back to City and Liverpool, you don't do that by signing... I don't think you do that by signing Sangare. You do that by getting players like him, who is not 33, let's not forget. He's not some aging player. He's at his peak. 30 is a player's peak. Yes, he might tip over past that while we have him, but he's a player that's far better than anyone we've got at winning the ball back, positionally, defensively. He is the best we've got by a mile. And he's only 30. Look at it that way. Michael Carrick played till he was 35. Paul Scholes played in a similar position. Obviously, his role was different, but playing in front of the defence until he was 40, 39, 30, whatever he was. Fernandinho, 35, 36 at City. Busquets, 34 now. Modric, 37 in a month's time. Like, this is a position where you can play a little bit longer. And I just think that if we're being negative about this, really, what can we find the positives in? Because to me, this is a fantastic signing. And like I said, if you ever want to get back, if you ever want United to be back up there with City and Liverpool, you do it by signing the sort of players that would get in their team. Like, the odds of getting a 22-year-old that's a bit shit for 20 million that's going to be as good as City and Liverpool's teams in 3 or 4 years are so slim. It's so hard to do that. What we need to do is improve the club's reputation, get back in the Champions League consistently, start challenging for domestic titles, start challenging for FA Cups, Europa Leagues, League Cups. Start with that. Win a couple of trophies with a Casemiro in there, with a Varane in there, with those sorts of players. And then in 2 or 3 years' time, okay, Casemiro's a bit past his best, but now the 22-year-old who we sign next year, he's approaching his peak now. We're not going to do it by just signing average players and hoping they get better. We need to sign top players. I think this is a brilliant signing, personally. Nick Anand says, absolutely love this signing. Proper giddy. Me too. BM says, us fans never learn. United have been doing this for years, signing aging players who don't really want to come for stupid wages. The difference for me is we haven't signed many people who have been around this age. The big money, past it players have been like 33, 30, like, look at Cavani, look at Ronaldo, those sorts of players. I think Varane's only 29 now. Whether he's past it or not, you wouldn't assume so when we signed him as a 28-year-old. Ibrahimovic is someone who we signed who was past it, but he helped us win a trophy. He helped us get closer to City and Liverpool in terms of quality. Obviously, we didn't then replace him adequately, but we tried to. We got Lukaku in. We thought we were doing that. Darren Cox says, break out the Lucozade, Joe. This is worth a drink. I ain't got any Lucozade. Jay's not here with his Lucozades. Charlie Pennell says, Fernandinho's 37. Who'd say no to him 7 years ago? Exactly. The last 7 years of Fernandinho, you wouldn't have had that at United because he was over it or past it. Patrick Cassidy says, Joe, can I drink at work? You're absolutely buzzing. Yeah, go on, have a drink. No one's going to know. Josh Bithell says, I think this is great, and it puts a rare smile on my face when it comes to United lately. Hopefully sorted before Liverpool. There have been some rumours that in order to play a player this weekend, I know we're playing on Monday, but it's this sort of match week, they have to be registered by midday on Friday, which is obviously today, in about an hour and 20 minutes. I don't know if that's true. That was in the Daily Mail. Obviously, the players have to be registered at some point before the game. I suppose the Friday afternoon would make some sense. So it seems as though he won't be playing in that game, if that is true. Karen took the kids, says, it's a panic buy and we keep panicking. Oh, wait. If this is a panic buy, can we keep panicking? Recent panic buys were Igalo and Fellaini. Rival fans scrambling for reasons why the best DM on the planet is actually bad. Yeah, exactly. Koth Mac says, here, Joe Smith, just wanted to spread some toxic positivity. Love you and the lads. Big up yourself. Big up my bonsai tree. Cheers, mate. Thank you very much. Abdullah Ibrahim's 30 is not a bad age for any player. To predict player longevity, we must look at how well the player maintains fitness, injury record, and adaptability. He passes all those checks well, in my opinion. I agree. It's not uncommon. I could list dozens of players who were still at their peak at 33. That is massively common in the modern era. Players still being good enough for top teams at 33. Chelsea signed Thiago Silva from PSG, which is a second-rate league, let's be honest, when he was 35, and he's still their best centre-back 2 years later. Yes, you can point to examples, Wayne Rooney, Gareth Bale, people who sort of go downhill quickly after the age of 30. But I think to say that this is a bad signing when, let's be honest, most of our top players don't even last at the club for 3 years. Lukaku went after 2 years. Ronaldo's probably going to go after 2 years. He tried to go after 1. Di Maria went after 1. If we could keep him here for that 5-year contract, that would be a miracle. No matter what the age is, this is a great signing. We'll bring our levels up. Best DM in the world, says Seamus Nolan. Exactly. Now let's move on and talk about some of the other things that people have been saying. One is that we still don't have anyone to progress the ball. This is a bad signing. It doesn't fit the profile, right? I understand that. And he isn't someone that's going to get the ball and dribble up the pitch. His progressive passes are pretty good. He can play the ball out. He's definitely a better passer than Fred and McTominay. But here's what I want to say about that. We've got two players in Eriksen and Bruno that, whilst they're not Luka Modric in terms of bringing the ball out, dribbling out from the back, they're just not. They don't have that ability. They're not quite the same level as those two players, because they're two of the best central midfielders of all time. When you look at Toni Kroos and Luka Modric's defensive output next to Casemiro, they do nothing defensively, right? They put a bit of pressure on, but in terms of tackles, interceptions, blocks, clearances, all of those stats for both Kroos and Modric are under the 30th percentile. Some of them, blocks, clearances, 2, 3, third percentile. Literally 98% of midfielders do more interceptions, more blocks, more clearances than Toni Kroos. 98% of midfielders tackle more than Luka Modric. They've essentially got two attacking midfielders next to Casemiro at Real Madrid because of how good he is defensively. His defensive stats are fantastic. His passing stats are fantastic. Like, he's not a player that, necessarily needs two heavy tackling players next to him. I think, obviously, the Premier League is different to La Liga. I think you could certainly play one of Eriksen or Bruno next to Casemiro. I think you could probably play both of them in a 3. Or maybe you put Fred next to him to do some of that dirty work for him. You put Bruno or Eriksen the other side to play the ball out and to drag the ball out of midfield. But Casemiro is an elite defensive midfielder, sitting, screening in front of the centre-backs, being that defensive anchor for what, the most successful team of the last decade? Like, I just don't see how this is a bad signing. I think this is fantastic. And also, it's not his fault that we don't have Modric playing next to him anymore, or that Man United doesn't have someone that can bring the ball out. If we'd have signed De Jong, the complaint would have been, well, we still don't have anyone that's defensively sound. We still don't have anyone to sit in front of the defence. That's the problem. United are 7 players short of being where we need to be. But this is a great piece in that jigsaw. Imagine you sign Casemiro now, and then next summer or in the winter, we sign the player to go next to him that can bring the ball out. This is the thing, it's a rebuild. It's like, well, we've signed Casemiro for loads of money, so we have to be world-class now. Well, we're not going to be. And the fact that, in 2 or 3 years' time, he'll be past his peak, hopefully by then, we'll be about ready to challenge teams. And then we can push on from there. I just think this is a brilliant signing that gets us closer to being in the Champions League more consistently, attracting better players, better prospects. We're seeing United players at the moment, players like James Garner, players like Dean Henderson, who, have proven themselves at a certain level, but are basically saying to United, if you're not playing me, I want to leave. That's because no one wants to sit on the bench for Man United. Look at Man City. Riyad Mahrez, their top goal scorer last season, sits on the bench for them every other week. And he's relatively happy to, because he knows at the end of the year, you're lifting at least one trophy. If players like Casemiro can get United to a point where, every single season we are challenging for trophies, players like James Garner, Dean Henderson, and then those to come after that are much more likely to, right, we're going to bring you in as a 22-year-old, and in 2 years' time you're replacing Casemiro. Someone will go, okay, yeah, I'll get 25 games a season until then. I'll get to learn from the best players in the world in a team that's winning trophies. If we go now to someone saying, do you want to come and sit on the bench and in a couple of years' time you replace Scott McTominay, and you're probably playing in the Europa League and you won't win any trophies, no one's going to want that. We have to be a more attractive proposition to players. We have to be a team that's used to winning and challenging for trophies. And players like Casemiro are the best way to get there. He isn't every single thing in one because no one is. I just think we can sign the players next that go next to him. But you have to get one piece at a time. And I think for now, him, Fred, Bruno, Eriksen, I think that's a decent pool to draw from. Maybe even Donny van der Beek in there. I think this is a fantastic signing for Man United. And like I said, statistically, we'll have a look at some of his stats. It's a bit nerdy, it's a bit boring. But for a lot of people, these are the sorts of things that matter. Is passing is excellent. I think, people think, well, he's a defensive midfielder, so he can't pass. His passes attempted, 65 passes per game, which puts him in the top 11% of midfielders. His pass completion is in the top 20% of midfielders. His progressive passes are in the top 30% of midfielders. And again, that's not his job at Real Madrid. He's got two of the best passers ever next to him that do a lot of this for him, but he's still capable of doing that. His tackles are in the top 10%, blocks top 7, clearances top 4, aerials 1, top 4. So he's fantastic in the air. I think this is a fantastic sign. I'm so excited. And I hate that we almost have to defend a signing like this. The fee, let's get into that. It's not my money. This is Man United's money. This is the Glazers sanctioning this. Let's sign top players and worry about the fee later. But I just think this is, United were never going to rebuild this team for 70 million quid. That's what you spend to rebuild a championship team. We needed to spend some big money this summer. And the fact that we bought him, or, the dealers agree with him, there's still a medical, there's still the final personal terms and tweaks to be sorted. But as far as I'm aware, this deal is almost certain to get done. And we still bid 80 million for Anthony 2 days ago, suggests there are more signings coming, and we are going to spend a bit of money this summer. It's a shame that it had to be after 2 demoralising, embarrassing defeats to Brentford and Brighton, but if it's getting done, I'm happy. I wish we didn't have to be shit in order for the Glazers to spend some money, but that's what's happened, and we needed to spend that money anyway. So, let's be somewhat glad that it is happening, better late than never. But I don't know, I almost feel like people wanted one signing that was going to fix everything. And because he doesn't dribble very well, that's, he's a bad signing. He's a fantastic player that is better than the players we have, and he slots straight into he's of a similar mould, and obviously quality-wise, but when you look at his stats, when you look at what they're good at, he's not dissimilar to Scott McTominay, except he's way better. And Scott McTominay starts for us every week. So we have replaced that with a much better player. That's how you get a better team. Replace the pieces in the team that aren't good enough with pieces that are better. We are absolutely doing that with Casemiro. It's a fantastic signing. So no more double pivot. I don't know. You might put him next to Fred. He played a lot. He played in a 4-3-3 at Real Madrid. That's what he did. He was the anchor in between Modric and Kroos and the defence. So he would sort of watch runners going through the lines. He would sweep up defensively occasionally, and he would allow those two to be creative and not do much else. Like I said, Kroos and Modric's defensive stats are woeful. They don't tackle or block or pressure or do anything, pretty much, those two. He does all of it for him. So the fact that he's, not just been around those two players, but allowed them to thrive. If you look at Toni Kroos and Modric's passing stats, unreal. Defensively, non-existent. He is doing it all for them. He plays 45 games a season, very rarely injured. I can't really see any downsides to this. Oh, in 5 years' time, he won't be at his best anymore. Fair enough. United tend to lose players after 5 years either way, so I'd happily have a world-class CDM for the next 3 or 4 years, than get someone that's 22 and on a free from a mid-table League team. Do you know what I mean? These are the options. We wanted Kamara who's just left. Was it Marseille on a free? Gone to Aston Villa. I'm not going to make any judgments yet. It's been 2 games, but he's not been great. He might turn that around. This is a better signing than that. Just because someone is 22 doesn't mean they will keep improving every year until they're 30. Only top players do that. The typical path for a footballer is break into the first team at 20, stay that good until you retire, or stay that good until you're 30, decline for 3 years and retire. Most players do that. Most players don't get better with age. Casemiro is someone that is world-class now, and yes, he might decline, but even him in his decline is better than most CDMs in the world. I've got a few super chats. Where are we up to here? Seamus Nolan says, no matter what his age is, this is a great signing. Yeah, it will bring our levels up. Best DM in the world. BM says, Joe, you are cherry-picking outliers to prove a point. He is an outlier. He is an outlier. Like I just said, if you're looking at the general footballer, They are about the same quality when they're 22 as they are when they're 30. Most players don't improve. I'm picking outliers because he is an outlier. He's one of the best, if not the best, defensive midfielders in the world. I'm not going to compare him to Jack Wilshere. I'm going to compare him to Carrick, Scholes, Busquets, Modric, like the best. I'm going to compare him to the other best midfielders in the world over the last few years. Why would I compare him to anyone else? Rafi Adrucci says, I've admired Casemiro from afar for close to a decade now. I cannot believe this is actually happening. Finally, the end of McFred. Akshay says, Joe, is Casemiro a CDM and captain? I don't know. On one hand, don't give a brand new player a captain's armband straight away again. Come on, have we not learned our lesson? On the other hand, Varane, Casemiro and Ronaldo going to Maguire for advice because he's a captain seems slightly odd to me. Lloyd James says, in a weird way, is it a bit concerning that the Glazers are now splashing the cash? Would they be doing this if they planned on selling soon? We can read into it all we want. Let's just enjoy it. Because on one hand you think, well, if they were going to sell, they probably wouldn't invest anymore because that means them losing money on the eventual sale. On the other hand, you would think, well, if they're going to sell, they need the club to be at the best and most viable state it can be. And in order to do that, they need to invest in the squad. You can look at it either way. Let's not dive too much into that. Let's hope the Glazers are selling. But I don't think the fact they're buying Casemiro means that they aren't going to sell or that they are going to sell. I think they're almost separate things. Because let's be honest, it doesn't matter anyway. This isn't their money. The thing is, that whole thing of Glazers have always spent money. They have, but they've not spent their money. So nothing has changed here. This is still them running the club the way they have. And therefore, I don't think this is either to help or hinder a sale. I think this is just, they sort of go, well, spend the money the club's got, don't touch ours, and we'll take out what's left. I don't think this is either, to be honest. Ravi says, another mercenary coming for money and a longer contract. Put the same wages as Real Madrid and let's see if he comes. Money is what brings players to United today. Do you know what? You're absolutely right. Because that's all we've got. But at least we've still got that. Because that's the only thing that's going to get us back to the top. We're not going to get players in that are world class without paying them more than the club they're currently at, unfortunately. Because the club is in a shit situation. You know, no one sat here going, we're the best club in the world, take a pay cut and join Man United. And everyone's going, yeah, I love that. Because they're so good, I'll leave them. He's leaving the European champions and La Liga champions. You don't do that for less money than you're on now to go and join a team that hasn't won a trophy in 5 years, a team that just finished 6th, and the team that's been battered by 2 mid-table teams to start the season. That isn't possible. The only thing that separates us from Wolves and Leicester at the moment is the fact that we make a lot more money than them. This is the only bargaining power we have. So until we start winning trophies by hopefully signing players like Casemiro, we are going to have to spend more than other clubs because we're shit. You know, there's only so many ways around that. At least we've got the money to still be able to entice him. The worry is when we don't have the trophies, we don't have the stature, and then we don't have the money. That's when United really start to struggle. At the moment, hopefully, we can spend a bit extra, get these people playing. He's still a competitor. He's still a world-class footballer. You know, when City signed all those players, was it 5 years it took them to win the league from being taken over? Every single player that Man City signed until 2012 when they won the league didn't want to play for Manchester City. They didn't grow up dreaming of Man City. Do you think Aguero dreamed of playing for Man City? None of them did. But the only thing they had was money, and they used that, and they signed mercenaries, and they signed people who didn't want to play for them. But eventually, if you get those mercenaries right, and you get the right players in, and you get a couple of bargains here and there, you win the league. Now people want to join City. But to start with, they didn't. And we're almost in that position where all we've got is money, and obviously a lot more history, reputation than Man City ever had. I'm not doubting that. But in terms of winning trophies right now, it's money. But at least we've got that. Koth Mike says, we're having it, ain't we? 4 is coming. 2 years' time. We can't win the 4th Champions League this season because we're not in it. What about if you win the Europa League and don't concede a goal the whole time? Do you get the Champions League as well? Is that like a little bonus trophy? Let's see. BM said, you said it's not my money for Maguire, Sanchez, Lukaku, etc. Then the penny drops. You make multiple videos on how we waste money on transfers. Yeah, United have wasted loads of money. But the thing is, spending money isn't the problem. Buying bad players that aren't worth it is the problem. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not a director of football. I'm not a scout. I'm not one of the most highly regarded football analysts in the world. United have hopefully got all of those things to make sure that these signings aren't bad. Just because someone's cheap doesn't mean they're good. Just because someone's expensive doesn't mean they're bad. But you can waste money on play. Look, we wasted money on Pogba. We wasted money on Maguire, who was too expensive. We wasted money on Wan-Bissaka, Lukaku, Di Maria. The list goes on. But the problem with those players wasn't that they cost money. It's that they weren't good enough to make Man United better. Look how much money, Liverpool spent 75 million on Van Dijk. That wasn't a waste of money, was it? Real Madrid spent 80 million on Ronaldo. There have been fewer, better spent 80 millions in the history of football. The money wasn't the problem. It was the players that was the problem. I think this player is someone that is worth the money. That's the difference. Liam Corby says, ignore the idiots who are complaining. Great day. It is a great day. And this and again, you can separate this from the owners and the performances and the fact that, United's top players have been shit for 18 months. Those things can be separated. I'm enjoying the fact that United have signed inarguably one of, if not the best defensive midfielder in the world over the last 7 or 8 years. I think that's a brilliant thing to happen for Man United. We'll talk about all those other things in other videos at other times with your mates in the pub, at Old Trafford, all that stuff. You still talk about Rashford's not been good enough, Maguire cost too much, etc., etc. Those things haven't gone away, but this is a good thing to happen. James Wood says, love your positivity, mate. Sick of negativity with everything to do with United. Fantastic signing. Thank you. And I don't, there are plenty of things to be negative about. There are, but signing Casemiro surely isn't one of them. United fans, or the people I speak to, for years have said we need a defensive midfielder. That seemed to be almost consensus opinion. And then we sign one that there aren't many better than, and somehow it's a problem. What? There isn't one player that can come and fix Man United. You get Pele from 1970, Maradona 86, Ronaldo 2010, although he might. One player wouldn't fix this team from any era. We need 6 or 7 top players to be up there again. This is one of them. This is a great signing. And also, let's think, this could be better for Varane. This could be better for Ronaldo. This could be better for Bruno and Eriksen and the fullback. Like, having an outlet in midfield, and I know he's not the passer that Kroos and Modric are, he just isn't, His passing rate is good. It is better than McTominay and Fred's. He's a better passer. He's better under pressure than they are. Just looking at a couple of stats in terms of passers under pressure, he's in the top 17% of passes under pressure made per 90. So he's someone that can play when he's being pressed. Obviously, he's going to lose the ball occasionally, but he's a good passer of the ball. Just because he's next to 2 of the best ever at Real Madrid, you assume that he's not. He is. He's a good passer. Ryan W says, De Jong and Savic, younger, better options. This is desperation and United fans are lapping it up. I don't think there's any evidence to say that Milinkovic-Savic is a better option for Man United than Casemiro. He's a player that has won nothing his whole career, has been playing at a mid to slightly above average team in Italy his whole career. He could be fantastic, but we've never seen him tested at the top level. Do you know what I mean? It's like when someone wins a gold medal at the Olympics. You go, that's a great start, but, as a boxer, that's a great start, but it doesn't mean you'll be a world champion because the standard's so different. He's been excellent for Lazio, but that doesn't mean you can dominate Champions League finals and be one of the best defensive midfielders in Europe. We've got almost 5,000 people watching, only 500 likes. Let's get to 1,000 likes. And also hit subscribe if you haven't already. We're live now. We go live every single time there is breaking news for Manchester United. I like Milinkovic-Savic. I think he would improve Manchester United. That's not the point I'm making. But I think just because someone is younger doesn't mean they are better or will ever be better than a world-class player who's 30. I think he's an absolute beast. I think he's a brilliant player. I think there's a couple more super chats that I missed, actually. Max K says, just think of this, lads. In 2 years' time, Glazers will be gone and a 32-year-old Casemiro will be bossing the midfield for Ten Hag's mighty Reds. I mean, that probably won't happen. But it's more likely to happen now than it was with Fred and McTominay in there. Let me know who would you have rather had. Would De Jong have suited better? Would he have been a better signing for Manchester United? Which player would you rather have had over Casemiro? Daniel Kirk says we're going to unlock Brazil, Fred. Perhaps we are. I think Casemiro, Fred and Bruno as a three is brilliant. You know, Bruno can bring the ball out from the back, his progressive carries and all that, which is, I know it's a wanky metric, but he can do that better than Fred and Casemiro can. I think that's a decent midfield, that. Casemiro, Fred, Bruno, Sancho, and then whoever the new winger is on the left, maybe Rashford, and then Ronaldo or Martial up front. I think that's a very good front six, personally. Someone said they'd like to sign Paul Scholes. Get over Fred, he's not good. I don't think he's great, but I think he's the best option of who we've got. If we sign another midfielder, maybe we'll get rid of him. Fred is 29, Casemiro's only a year older. Yeah, but Fred's not very good. But I get your point, yeah. Fred doesn't seem like an old player who's running out of juice, does he? De Jong could still happen. I don't think so. That was one thing that was mentioned last night, was that this deal would likely be instead of De Jong. I think mostly because they don't think we can get him. I think we've probably got the money to sign them both, but we don't think we can get him. Fred and Casemiro's chemistry will be 99 because of the Brazil links. Yeah, potentially. Fred Casemiro midfield works great for Brazil. Casemiro is the perfect new captain. Bloody hell, that's a lot to ask, innit? Come in immediately and be captain. Juve signed Pirlo at 31. Yeah, exactly. And people forget with Pirlo, I think he left AC Milan on a free, didn't he? And they didn't want to give him a new contract at 31. And then he went on to be one of the classiest, most influential midfielders in the team that won the league every single year at Juventus for the next 3 or 4 years. 30 and 31 are different for different people. And the fact that his injury record is spectacular suggests that he won't decline massively quickly. He might. Who knows? That's the thing. You are taking a risk. He's 30 years old. He might decline quickly. And look at Mata and Matic. By the time they were 31, they were pretty much past it. But he might not. He might be someone that stays around and is still almost at the top of his game at 34. And if we can get 4 good years out of him, come on. The expectation of getting 10 years out of every player you sign is wildly unrealistic. You know, it just doesn't happen. United haven't kept a top player at the club for 10 years since Wayne Rooney. Do you know what I mean? So if we could get 3 or 4 really good years out of him, and in the meantime build and rebuild this squad, you know, that's so much better than signing a risk that's 22. I think personally. Someone said, "Can you get 5 million for Maguire?" Yeah, I'd have thought so. Let the players vote for the next captain. Interesting. We only need 8 more players to compete. You know what I mean? It's getting there, isn't it, lads? It's getting there. We only need 8 more world-class players, and we're as good as Man City. So, you know, get scared. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. Right, that's going to be all from me this morning. Manchester United have agreed a deal of 60 million euros plus a further 10 in add-ons for Brazilian Real Madrid midfielder Casemiro. You know who he is because it's Casemiro. Let's get excited about this. I mean, you can do what you want. I'm excited about this. I think this is a brilliant signing. United have needed a defensive midfielder for a long time, and we've finally signed one. It's not his fault. He doesn't have Modric next to him anymore. I think if United can sign another piece of the jigsaw in the next 1 or 2 transfer windows, we are working towards having a world-class midfield. Certainly, we've got the first piece of one. Casemiro is fantastic. This deal looks like it will be done over the weekend. Apparently, a medical isn't scheduled in, but is the next piece of the puzzle that needs to be sorted. He's going to be on a lot of money, but why wouldn't he be? He's one of the best midfielders in the world. Thank you very much for joining me. Like I said, hit subscribe if you haven't already. We go live all the time when there is breaking news. We'll also be back for the preview this afternoon. Manchester United versus Liverpool. Will Casemiro play? We'll find out then. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you in a bit.